The Galactic Empire's fleet cruised through space, massive and powerful. The Empire had built this fleet as a symbol of its strength, and it was feared across the galaxy. The ships, with their shining silver armor and powerful energy weapons, were unbeatable, or so everyone believed. Today they patrolled the borders of the Empire, keeping an eye out for any potential threats. The fleet commander, Admiral Crixon, sat in his command chair on the bridge of the flagship, confident and relaxed. He glanced at the screens around him, displaying the other ships in his fleet and the vast empty space surrounding them. It was a routine patrol, nothing unusual. He and his crew expected nothing more than a quiet day in space. Then, suddenly, a beeping sound filled the bridge. One of the officers looked up from his screen, his eyes wide with surprise. "Commander Crixon," he called out. "We have an unidentified object approaching." Crixon raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "What kind of object?" he asked, his tone slightly amused. "This far out, no one dared come close to the Empire's fleet." "It appears to be a ship, sir," the officer replied, sounding uncertain. "But it's small, very small, and it's not in our database. It doesn't match any known designs." Crixon chuckled, barely interested. "A single small ship? Probably some lost traveler or a malfunctioning probe." He waved his hand dismissively. "Send a message to it. Order them to identify themselves and state their purpose. Let's see if they even respond." The officer nodded and sent the message, but a few moments passed with no reply. The strange ship continued its approach, getting closer to the fleet. The crew exchanged nervous glances, sensing that something wasn't quite right. "Still no response, sir," the officer said, his voice now tinged with worry. Crixon frowned. "That's unusual," he muttered. He leaned forward in his chair, studying the ship on the screen. It was small, as the officer had said, but there was something odd about it. It moved with purpose, cutting through space directly toward them without hesitation. "Commander, the ship is powering up," another officer reported, alarmed. "Its engines are activating and it's armed." Crixon's eyes narrowed. This wasn't some lost traveler. Whoever was piloting that ship was clearly not afraid of the Empire's mightiest fleet. "Prepare our defenses," he ordered. "Let's give this little ship a taste of our power." The fleet's weapons hummed to life, massive cannons turning to face the approaching vessel. Yet the small ship showed no signs of slowing down or backing away. Instead, it kept moving forward, its engines glowing brightly as it charged straight at the Empire's warships. "Sir, we're scanning the ship now," an officer called out, sounding increasingly anxious. It's like nothing we've seen before. The technology is advanced far beyond what we know." Crixon's amusement faded, replaced by a slight unease. What kind of ship was this? Who would dare come at the Empire's fleet with a single vessel? He clenched his fists, feeling the tension build in the room. "Activate all shields and prepare to fire on my command," he barked. "Let's end this quickly." The strange ship was now close enough that it appeared clearly on their screens, a sleek, dark vessel with a design that seemed almost alien. The crew couldn't take their eyes off it, wondering who or what was piloting it. Then, without warning, the small ship opened fire, unleashing beams of energy that struck one of the Empire's ships with incredible force. The entire bridge shook as they watched, shocked. One of their own ships, a massive war vessel, had just taken damage from a single shot. Crixon's eyes widened as he realized this was no ordinary enemy. "Prepare for battle!" he shouted, as the strange ship continued its relentless approach. This was only the beginning, and the Galactic Empire had no idea what they were truly up against. Alarms blared across the Empire's fleet as the strange lone ship opened fire. Admiral Crixon gripped the armrests of his command chair, his face tight with anger and surprise. This tiny ship, a speck compared to their massive vessels, had dared to attack the Galactic Empire's finest fleet. And worse, its weapons were more powerful than anything they had seen before. "Shields up! All ships, prepare for combat!" Crixon commanded, his voice echoing across the bridge. The crew, usually calm and disciplined, scrambled into action, pressing buttons and shouting to one another as they prepared to defend against this unexpected enemy. On the main screen, the strange ship was visible, a sleek black shape cutting through space with deadly purpose. It moved fast, dodging through the Empire's formation like it was toying with them. The Empire's cannons turned to track it, firing bursts of energy that flashed across the darkness, but the lone ship danced around them, evading every shot with ease. "How is it moving so fast?" one of Crixon's officers whispered, eyes glued to the screen. "It's like it's predicting our every move."
"Enough!"
Crixon snapped, frustrated by his crew's awe. "It's just one ship. We have the strength of 100 warships. Surround it and blast it out of existence." The Empire's fleet began to close in, forming a wide circle around the mysterious vessel. Each ship trained its weapons on the lone ship, ready to destroy it with a single massive attack. For a moment, it looked as though victory was certain. The fleet was in perfect formation, all guns pointed directly at the target. But the small ship was faster than they anticipated. Just as the Empire's ships began to fire, it darted sideways, avoiding their combined assault. Beams of energy meant to destroy it instead collided with other Empire ships, causing explosions and chaos among their own ranks. Crixon's face turned pale as he realized what had happened. This ship wasn't just fast, it was clever, using the Empire's own power against them. "Regroup," he barked, trying to calm his shocked crew. "Stay in formation. Do not fire unless I give the command." But the strange ship didn't give them a chance to regroup. It launched another attack, firing precise shots at the Empire's biggest vessels. Each shot was perfectly aimed, hitting weak points in the Empire ship's armor, causing them to shudder and spark. One by one, the Empire's ships began to take damage, their shields and defenses failing under the relentless assault. The bridge of Crixon's flagship was tense, filled with nervous glances and anxious whispers. "Sir, we've lost contact with Ship 23, one officer reported, his voice shaking, "and Ship 14 is heavily damaged." Crixon clenched his fists, watching helplessly as his fleet, the pride of the Galactic Empire, was picked apart by a single ship. This was impossible. No one had ever defeated the Empire in battle, especially not with a single vessel. Yet here they were, falling apart under the attacks of this strange lone enemy. "Commander, it's like this ship knows exactly where to hit us," another officer said, wide-eyed. "Every shot, every move. It's as if it studied our ships for years." Crixon gritted his teeth, refusing to accept that they were losing. "All remaining ships surrounded again. Don't let it escape," he shouted. "We are the Galactic Empire. We do not lose!" But the lone ship continued its attack, slipping through their lines, evading every trap, every tactic. It was faster and smarter than any enemy they'd ever faced. The Empire's fleet was now in disarray, ships scattering in an attempt to avoid the precise, brutal strikes of the human vessel. As Crixon watched, fury turning to fear, he realized the truth. This lone ship was something different, something beyond their understanding. And it wasn't here by accident. It was here to show the Galactic Empire just how vulnerable they truly were. This was no simple battle. This was the beginning of a nightmare. The lone human ship moved like a shadow, weaving through the Empire's fleet as if it were merely a game. The Empire's most powerful warships, ships that had conquered planets and destroyed civilizations, were falling one by one. Each time they tried to close in, the small ship slipped through, attacking from unexpected angles. Admiral Crixon could hardly believe his eyes. How could this be happening? The Empire's fleets were known for their unmatched strength, and yet this small, unknown ship was defeating them with ease. It was humiliating and terrifying. "Admiral, we're losing control of the formation," an officer shouted, his voice filled with panic. "Our ships are scattered, and the enemy's targeting our engines and weapons. We're defenseless." Crixon clenched his jaw, fury burning in his eyes. "This isn't over yet," he growled. "Focus all weapons on that ship. I want every single gun aimed at it. Fire on my command. We'll crush it with everything we have left." But deep down, he knew this was a fight against impossible odds. The strange ship had somehow avoided every attack they'd thrown at it, outsmarting them at every turn. Its movements were almost human, driven by a fierce determination that the Empire's cold, calculated tactics couldn't match. On the screen, the human ship charged toward another Empire vessel, dodging past laser fire and energy blasts. It moved swiftly, skillfully, hitting its target with a powerful burst of energy. The Empire ship shuddered, its hull cracking before it exploded into a fiery blaze. Debris scattered into the void, and the bridge of Crixon's flagship fell silent, the crew watching in stunned horror. "Sir," another officer whispered, breaking the silence. We can't beat this. It's like this ship knows all our weaknesses." Crixon slammed his fist on the console. "Nonsense! We are the Galactic Empire. We don't surrender to a single ship." But his voice, once strong and commanding, now sounded strained, filled with a fear he couldn't hide. He glanced around at his crew, seeing the same fear mirrored in their faces. They were losing hope, and he knew it. Meanwhile, the human ship showed no signs of slowing down. It moved with purpose, its attacks precise and relentless, tearing through the Empire's fleet like it was nothing. Despite being outnumbered and outgunned, this lone ship fought as though it couldn't be stopped, as though surrender was not an option. Crixon's mind raced, desperately searching for a solution. But every strategy, every maneuver he tried, failed. The human ship countered every tactic, escaping every trap, as if it anticipated his every move. "Sir, should we retreat?" one of the officers asked, his voice barely a whisper. It was a question no one dared to ask in the Empire, where retreat was considered weakness. But now, surrounded by the wreckage of his fleet, Crixon found himself considering it. For the first time in his career, the thought of defeat crept into his mind. Just then, the human ship's signal appeared on their comms. It was broadcasting a message. Crixon stared at the screen, baffled. "Put it through," he ordered, unable to hide his curiosity. A calm, steady voice echoed through the bridge. "This is Captain Reyes of the starship Valkyrie. You are trespassing on human territory. Stand down or face destruction." The crew exchanged shocked glances. "Human?" Crixon's eyes narrowed, anger flaring up once more. How could a single human ship bring them to their knees? It was impossible, yet here they were, beaten and humiliated. "Captain Reyes," Crixon replied, trying to sound as powerful as he could. "You may have surprised us, but the Empire does not surrender. We will fight until the end!" There was a pause. Then Captain Reyes's voice came back, calm yet unbreakable. "So be it. Then prepare to fall, Admiral. The Empire's reign is over." As the message ended, Crixon knew he was facing something far greater than he could have ever imagined. The battle wasn't just about power or strategy, it was about resilience, about courage. And as the human ship continued its relentless attack, Crixon began to wonder if the mighty Galactic Empire had finally met its match. The Galactic Empire's fleet was now a mess of smoke and debris, scattered across the cold darkness of space. Admiral Crixon watched in disbelief as the lone human ship, the Valkyrie, circled their remaining forces like a predator stalking its prey. He had lost too many ships, and the fear in his crew's eyes was growing. But he couldn't allow himself to retreat. "Not yet. Admiral, we've lost nearly all of our heavy artillery ships," an officer reported, her voice shaking. "The Valkyrie is tearing through our defenses. We don't stand a chance." Crixon clenched his fists. "We cannot surrender. The Empire does not bow to a single enemy, human or otherwise." He looked around at his remaining crew, who were pale and exhausted. "Prepare for one last assault. We'll throw everything we have at that ship." The remaining Empire ships formed a tight circle, focusing their guns on the Valkyrie. This time, Crixon wasn't taking any chances. He ordered every single weapon on every ship to fire simultaneously. If they were going down, they would go down fighting with all their might. "Fire!" Crixon commanded, his voice echoing across the bridge. The space around them erupted in a storm of energy blasts, missiles, and plasma beams, all aimed directly at the Valkyrie. The dark void turned bright with explosions as every Empire ship unleashed its firepower. The crew held their breath, hoping this final attack would finally destroy their relentless opponent. But the Valkyrie moved with incredible speed, dodging the incoming fire with skill and precision. It twisted and turned, weaving through the barrage like it could predict each shot. The Empire's ships fired continuously, but the human vessel stayed one step ahead, evading every blast. Then, with a flash of light, the Valkyrie launched its counterattack. It targeted the Empire's central ships, its lasers hitting their engines with pinpoint accuracy. Each shot was brutal, each hit perfect. Within seconds, several more of Crixon's ships exploded, their fiery remains drifting into the endless night. On the bridge, the silence was deafening. Crixon's crew stared at the screens, horror etched on their faces. Their best fleet, the pride of the Empire, was being dismantled by a single human ship. "Admiral, our forces are almost completely wiped out," another officer whispered. "There's nothing left. We should retreat." But Crixon refused to give up. His pride, his loyalty to the Empire wouldn't allow it. He stood tall, forcing himself to show strength even as his fleet crumbled. "Prepare the final weapon," he ordered. "If this is our end, we'll take that ship with us." The crew hesitated, their eyes wide with fear, but they followed his orders. The flagship's massive cannon, a weapon meant only for desperate situations, was powered up. It was a dangerous weapon, capable of destroying anything in its path, but it took time to charge, and they would only get one shot. The Valkyrie continued its assault, moving closer and closer to the flagship. Crixon's heart pounded as he watched it approach. He knew this was his last chance. "Steady! Steady!" he whispered, watching the energy levels on the cannon rise. At that moment, the Valkyrie paused. For a split second, it hung there in space, as if it sensed what was about to happen. Crixon seized the opportunity, raising his hand. "Fire!" The cannon unleashed a massive beam of energy hurtling toward the Valkyrie. The crew held their breath, watching as the powerful blast closed in on the lone human ship. But just before the beam hit, the Valkyrie made an impossible maneuver, diving down and evading the blast with mere inches to spare. The energy beam sailed past it, missing the target completely. "No," Crixon whispered, his face pale. He watched in disbelief as the Valkyrie surged forward, now only a short distance from the flagship. In a flash, the Valkyrie fired its final shots, targeting the flagship's engines and command center. The ship shook violently, alarms blaring as explosions ripped through it. The bridge was filled with smoke, and Crixon could feel the end approaching. His pride and power, all destroyed by one small ship and its relentless human pilot. As the Valkyrie moved past the crippled flagship, Admiral Crixon stood silently, accepting the bitter reality. The Empire, once feared across the galaxy, had fallen to the resilience of a single human. The crew watched as the Valkyrie disappeared into the darkness, leaving behind the remains of the Galactic Empire's mightiest fleet. And as the bridge fell silent, Crixon knew that this was more than a defeat. It was a warning. Humanity was a force the galaxy could no longer ignore. The bridge of Admiral Crixon's flagship was in chaos. Smoke filled the air and alarms blared loudly, but there was an eerie silence among the crew. They had just witnessed the fall of their once mighty fleet, all at the hands of a single human ship. Crixon's heart sank as he surveyed the destruction around him. This was not just a battle lost, it was a monumental defeat for the Galactic Empire. "Admiral!" an officer shouted, panic evident in her voice. "We have severe damage to the engines." "We can't move!" Crixon's mind raced. What had gone wrong? The Empire was supposed to be unstoppable, yet here they were, stranded and vulnerable. "Send out a distress signal," he ordered, though deep down he knew it might already be too late. They were in enemy territory now, and the human ship could return at any moment. As the crew scrambled to send the signal, Crixon took a moment to collect his thoughts. He recalled the calm, confident voice of Captain Reyes, the pilot of the Valkyrie. "Prepare to fall, Admiral. The Empire's reign is over." Those words echoed in his mind like a haunting melody. Suddenly, the ship shook violently as another blast hit. Crixon steadied himself, glaring out the view screen. To his shock, the Valkyrie had returned. It hovered just a short distance away, weapons trained on the flagship once again. The crew gasped, dread filling the air. Captain Reyes appeared on the view screen, a determined look on his face. "Admiral Crixon," he said, his voice steady and clear, "you have lost today. Your Empire's might is not what you believed it to be. This is your warning." Crixon clenched his fists. "You think you can scare us? We are the Galactic Empire. We will rebuild!" Reyes shook his head, an expression of pity crossing his face. "You misunderstand, Admiral. This is not about fear. It's about understanding that humanity is no longer the easy target you once thought. We will defend our home, and we will not allow you to threaten us again." As he spoke, Crixon felt a mixture of anger and frustration. How could this human dare to speak to him like this? Yet in his heart he knew Reyes was right. The Empire had underestimated humans for far too long, treating them as insignificant beings in the vastness of the galaxy. "Your arrogance will be your downfall," Reyes continued, his voice unwavering. "You had your chance to leave us alone. Now we will defend our territory and you will pay for your mistakes." "Is that a threat?" Crixon sneered, trying to mask his unease. But deep down, he knew this was not just bravado. The human had shown remarkable skill, courage, and determination, something he had never expected from such a small vessel. "Yes, it is," Reyes replied firmly. "This time you won't be facing a few ships. You will face an entire world united in its defense. We are not afraid of your empire any longer. We will fight for our home, for our people." With that, Reyes signaled his crew, and the Valkyrie moved back, turning its weapons away from the flagship. Crixon watched, confusion mixed with a sense of dread. What was happening? Was the battle truly over? "We are leaving you with a message, Admiral," Reyes said as the Valkyrie began to accelerate. "Next time there will be no mercy. You may have lost this battle, but you must remember humanity is no longer weak." As the Valkyrie sped away, Crixon felt a surge of anger rising within him. This was a humiliation beyond measure. He had led his fleet into battle with confidence, only to be defeated by a single ship. But more than anger, there was fear, a fear of what humanity could become if left unchecked. "Prepare for damage control," he ordered, still staring at the retreating ship. "We will rebuild. We will return stronger." But deep inside, Crixon knew this was not just a defeat. It was a turning point. The Galactic Empire had underestimated humanity, and now that mistake would haunt them. The humans had shown they could fight back, and the next encounter would not be so easy. As the last traces of the Valkyrie disappeared into the dark void of space, Crixon realized that the warning had been given, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The fight was far from over, but the next battle would not be fought in the same way. Humanity had awakened, and with it, a new chapter in the galaxy's history had begun.